Ever wonder how your apps know exactly where to go when you click a button or make a request in the application? Just like a waiter in the restaurant takes your order and he or she ensures the kitchen gets it right, right? So API gateway do the same for microservices. For example, you are using an application and you want to make an order, so you will add that item in the cart, right? So you will click that button, so it will, that request will go somewhere. So we are going to understand that thing only today. So in this video I will break down what an API gateway is, why it is so essential in the modern backend architecture, and how it powers apps like Netflix, Amazon, and even your banking application. So let's get started. So here we will take a very simple example. So an API gateway is like a smart doorman for your entire application. So when a client, let's say a mobile application or a browser, wants to talk to your backend service, so it does not hit the your service directly. Basically it will first talks to the API gateway, right? So this gateway receives the request, routes it to the correct microservices and returns the response, all while having security, logging, and sometimes even translating between different protocols. So we will, take a very simple example here to understand how API gateway works, right? So you can consider like you are sitting in a restaurant and a waiter comes to take your order. The waiter does not cook, right? But he knows what you want, which chef handles what, right? And it brings back your food. Now imagine if customer went straight to the kitchen. So it's a chaos, right? That's what life is like without an API gateway. So the gateway is that polite, organized, and reliable waiter. So now we will see the system level architecture. Like for example, like how in real system API gateway comes into picture. So you can see this, the client sends a request to the API gateway here. So basically mobile application or browser is your client and it is sending the request to API gateway, and API gateway will receive that request, then it will apply any security or authentication on top of it, and then it forwards the request to the correct microservices. For example, you can see here, so let's say a client or the web applications, for example you are using an web browser and you are placing an order. So order request will go to API gateway and API gateway will identify, okay, so I need to forward this request to order service. So it will forward that request to the correct microservices, then it will return the response back to the client through API gateway, right? So how this API gateway works, so this is how the API gateway works. Now we will see how monolithic and microservice takes this API gateway, like where the API gateway comes into picture. So you can see here in monolithic, there is only everything lives in one place, right? Your front end talks to one back end. So we don't need any gateway here. But in microservices, your application is broken into 5, 10, or even 50 plus services. So you can take different example of backend services like authentication service, payment service, notification service, user profile service, order service, right? So basically API gateway becomes the central traffic controller. So it will simplify the client job, right? And it will also handle critical features like authentication, rate limiting, and logging. So here there are a couple of API gateway tools and frameworks available. So it will depend on your stack. So for example here AWS API gateway, so it is fully managed, serverless, and option for cloud apps. Then Kong, it is also open source. NGINX, it is lightweight, fast, and it basically used for reverse proxy too. And Spring Cloud Gateway and OpenResty. So OpenResty is a it's an advanced, you can say, the framework which is Lua based gateway which is built on top of NGINX framework. So here, so this is all about API gateway. Is what is API gateway. So in the next time you call an API, remember there is a smart waiter behind the scene making sure it gets to the right kitchen, right? So if it helped you understand API gateway better, smash that like button, subscribe for hands-on coding tutorials, and drop a comment if you have used any of these tools before. Thank you.